Don't build your whole life around one person, because the more you lose yourself, the more you lose everything. I'm 84 years old, and I learned that too late. Not because someone destroyed my life, because I slowly handed it over, piece by piece, without even noticing. It started with one person, just one. Nothing unusual about them, nothing dramatic about the beginning. That's what makes it harder to understand now. Because if it had started with intensity, I might have seen it. But it didn't. It started quietly, with trust, with comfort, with a feeling that this person understood me in a way others didn't. And when you feel understood like that, you open. You don't calculate, you don't protect, you just allow. I gave my time first. Small amounts. Nothing that felt like a sacrifice. Just choosing to be available, choosing to listen, choosing to show up. That felt right, normal, healthy even. But time has a way of shifting without asking you. What begins as sometimes becomes often. What feels like a choice becomes a habit, and habits build your life. I started adjusting my days around them, not intentionally, just naturally. If they needed something, I moved things around. If they wanted to talk, I stayed longer. If they were quiet, I noticed. That's when something subtle began. My attention moved away from myself, toward them. And attention is where your life lives. Where you place it shapes everything. I didn't think about that then. I thought I was just being present. But I wasn't present with myself anymore, only with them. That's how it grows, not through big sacrifices, through small, repeated shifts. I stopped checking what I needed, stopped asking what I felt, because nothing felt urgent, nothing felt wrong. Everything looked fine. That's the dangerous part. When nothing breaks, you don't question anything. I started spending less time with others, not because I decided to, because I didn't notice. If I had to choose, I chose them, again and again. Friends would call, I'd shorten it. Family would reach out, I'd delay it. Not out of disrespect, out of focus. My world had started narrowing, and I didn't see it as loss. I saw it as closeness, as something meaningful. That's the illusion. You think you're building something deep, but you're slowly removing everything else that held you up. I became more available to them and less available to myself. That's a quiet shift, but it changes everything, because once you stop listening to yourself, you stop existing fully. I didn't notice when that happened. There was no moment, no clear line, just a gradual disappearance. I still spoke, still moved, still lived my days, but inside, my center had shifted. Everything I felt depended on them. If they were fine, I felt stable. If they pulled away, something inside me tightened. That's not connection. That's dependence. But I didn't have that word then. I called it care. I called it closeness. I called it something worth holding on to. And I held on to it tightly, tighter than I should have. Because when you hold on to one person like that, you start letting go of everything else, without realizing what you're losing. Years passed. Not fast, not slow, just quietly. And in those years, I made decisions that didn't come from me. They came from them, from what they needed, from what they wanted, from what kept things steady between us. I adjusted again and again, and every adjustment felt small, harmless. But small things, repeated enough times, become your life. That's what happened to me. I didn't lose everything in one moment. I built my life around one person until there was nothing left that belonged only to me. And the worst part is, I didn't feel it while it was happening, because I thought I had something important, something worth protecting, something that made everything else less necessary. But I was wrong, because when your whole life sits inside one person, you don't have a life, you have a dependency. And dependency feels stable until the moment it isn't. That moment didn't come suddenly. Just like everything else, it changed quietly. They became different, not cruel, not dramatic, just less available, less present, less certain. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. Instability. Because I had placed everything there, all of it. And now, it was shifting. And when something you've built your entire life around begins to shift, you don't just feel loss, you feel collapse. But the collapse didn't start then. That's what I understand now. It had started years before, when I stopped being part of my own life. It had started years before, when I stopped being part of my own life. But I didn't see that then. All I could feel was what was happening now, the distance, the change, the way things no longer felt the same, and I tried to fix it. That's the first instinct, not to step back, to hold tighter. I gave more time, more attention, more effort, as if more of me could bring things back to how they were. But when something has already shifted, more effort doesn't restore it. It only shows you how much you've already given. I started noticing things I had ignored before. Small changes, shorter conversations, less presence, a different tone. Nothing obvious, nothing anyone else would call a problem. But when your entire world is built around one person, you feel even the smallest shift, because there's nowhere else for your attention to go. That's the trap. When everything is centered in one place, any change feels like everything is falling apart. And for me, it was. Not because they changed completely, because I had nothing else holding me. No balance, no space outside of them, no version of my life that existed without them in it. That's when the fear started. Not loud, not dramatic, just constant. A quiet tension that didn't leave. What if this goes away? What will I have left? Those questions didn't have answers, because I had spent years removing everything else. I had made them my answer to everything, and now that answer was uncertain. I tried to ignore it, told myself things would settle, that this was just a phase, that I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew something had already changed, and no amount of effort from me could bring it back. That's the part no one prepares you for. When you give your whole life to one person, you don't realize you've made yourself dependent until you feel them slipping. And when that happens, you don't just lose them. You lose your sense of stability, because your stability was never yours, it was borrowed from them. And borrowed things don't stay forever. That realization didn't come all at once. It came in moments, small ones. A conversation that ended too quickly. A day that passed without hearing from them. a feeling I couldn't shake, no matter how much I tried to distract myself. And slowly, something inside me started breaking. Not loudly, quietly, like something giving up. Because there's only so long you can hold something in place when it's already moving away. I reached a point where I couldn't give more. Not because I didn't want to, because there was nothing left to give. And that's when it became clear, not through words, not through explanation, through absence, through change, through the simple fact that what I had built my life around was no longer there in the same way. It didn't end with a moment, no final conversation, no clear ending, just a gradual disappearance. And that's what made it harder, because there was nothing to point to. Nothing to say, this is when it broke. It had already been breaking for a long time. I just didn't see it, because I was too focused on holding it together. And when it finally slipped, I didn't just feel the loss of them. I felt something deeper, something I wasn't ready for. Emptiness. Not because they were gone, because there was nothing else left. That's when the truth started to surface, slowly, painfully, clearly. It wasn't losing them that broke me. It was realizing how much I had already lost before they even left. It was realizing how much I had already lost before they even left. That truth doesn't come all at once. It comes in quiet moments, moments where nothing is happening, and suddenly everything becomes clear. I remember sitting alone one evening, no noise, no distraction, no one to respond to. And for the first time in years, there was no one else in my mind, just me. And I didn't recognize that feeling. Not because it was new, because I had been away from it for too long. That's when it started to settle. Not the loss of them, the absence of myself. I tried to think about what I used to enjoy, what I used to do, who I used to be before all of this. And the answers didn't come easily. That's what shocked me. Not that they were gone, that I couldn't find myself clearly without them. That's when I understood something I wish I had seen earlier. I didn't just lose a person. I lost my center, the place inside me that made decisions, that held balance, that existed independently. I had replaced it with them. And when they changed, there was nothing left to hold me steady. That's the real collapse, not emotional, structural. Your entire life loses its shape because it was built around something that wasn't permanent. I started seeing my past differently, not with regret that tries to go back, with clarity that finally sees what happened. I saw every moment I adjusted when I didn't need to, every time I said yes when I meant something else. Every time I ignored something inside me, just to keep things smooth. Those moments didn't feel important at the time, but they were. They were the moments I stepped away from myself, again and again, until there was distance between who I was and how I was living. And that distance is what I felt now. Not just loneliness, disconnection from myself. That's a deeper kind of emptiness, because you can reach out to people. But how do you reach back to yourself after you've been gone for so long? That was the question I had to face, and there was no quick answer, no sudden change, just small returns. I started noticing my own thoughts again, not the ones about them, about me, what I felt, what I needed, what I didn't want anymore. At first it felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable,
because I wasn't used to placing my attention there.
But I stayed with it, slowly, carefully, like something fragile, because it was. That part of me had been ignored for years, and now it needed time to come back. I didn't try to rebuild everything. I didn't rush to fix my life. I just stopped giving myself away. That was the first step. Not dramatic, but necessary. I said no when something didn't feel right. I stayed silent when I didn't need to explain. I chose myself in small ways. And those small choices started bringing something back. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to feel that I was there again. Present. Not fully, but more than before. And that's when I understood the final truth. It wasn't losing them that broke me. It was realizing I had lost myself long before that. They didn't take everything from me. I gave it away, slowly. And that's what I had to face. Not blame, not anger, just responsibility. Because once you see that clearly, you stop doing it again. You stop building your life around one person. You stop placing everything in one place. You stop ignoring yourself just to keep something else alive. At 84, I don't have the same life I had before. But I have something I didn't have then, awareness. And that awareness keeps me steady, not dependent, not lost, just present in my own life again. And if there's anything I would say now, it's not advice, just something I learned the hard way. Don't build your whole life around one person, because when you lose yourself, you don't just lose them, you lose everything.